Recall expands to include 7 million pounds of deli.
Nearly 150 sick in salmonella outbreak affecting 11
Coli
countries.
outbreak in the U.S. kills 10 and sickens hundreds.
All these headlines about food safety. This isn't just policy, it's personal. Behind every recall, every outbreak, and every regulation, there's someone whose life was permanently changed or lost. I know that because I am one of them.
Welcome to Confessions of a Food Safety A-Hole. I'm Gennette Zimmer.
And I'm Dr. Darin Detwiler, former submarine guy, longtime food safety advocate, author, and someone who's been speaking up for over 3.5 decades, even when it wasn't easy or popular.
This isn't your average food safety podcast. We're not talking about bacteria and best practices. We won't be teaching you the proper temperature to cook a chicken breast.
165.
Or even how to pronounce Listeria monocytogenes.
Not even close.
We're diving into the culture, the conflicts, and the human cost of getting it wrong.
We'll share stories, some painful, some funny, all true. Revealing the real experiences of someone who's spent a lifetime behind the scenes.
These aren't stories you read about in newspapers or magazines, and they're not found on conference agendas. What they are everyday experiences of people who have dedicated their lives to making sure you have access to safe food.
Because when it comes to protecting every plate, it's not just policy and data. It's personal. And it's time we start talking about it like it is.
Welcome back to Confessions of a Food Safety A-Hole.
I'm Dr. Darin Detwiler.
And I'm Gennette Zimmer. Now, before you even say anything, I feel like I need to address a little misconception, possibly, because of the intro, which is I can properly pronounce Listeria monocytogenes.
Excellent. Confession, we actually tried to record this earlier. I wanted to record this days earlier, but I had lost my voice.
Yeah, you could not speak at all. I was like, we're not putting that on the air.
Yeah, it was a bit of a rough time. I had so much, I guess, it's kind of like, the cartoon version of your feet after you run a marathon, that your feet are kind of like, pulsating. You can visually see them pulsating. That's how my throat felt for a while. I had been talking so much at IFP, the International Association for Food Protection Conference in Cleveland. I had done all these interviews all day on Monday and on Tuesday. And I think all said and done, I did 15 or 16 different interviews over the course of 2 days. And by the end of all that, my throat was just in need of its own vacation from that trip. But it was a good trip. Last year, 2024, IFP was in Long Beach, a good, 15, 20-minute drive from our house. This
you
year
were so excited that it was in Long
because it was like so many people I knew were coming to my town. I'm always going to their town.
Not only
they're coming to my town.
You talked about the fact that IFP was going to be in Long Beach in 2024 for like 2 years prior to it coming out. You were so excited.
It was really good. And it ended up being, like a 9 or 10 day event because there were people who came out early.
Oh, yeah.
And then there were people who stayed after the fact, and we were doing lunches and dinners. And remember, there was some folks, I ended up driving them to go see Upton Sinclair's house.
That's right.
In the kind of Pasadena foothills area.
Yep.
That
you guys
historical
totally
landmark.
Nerded out. On
it was geeky. It was geeky. I was like, ooh, there's his house. He once lived there. Oh, can I touch it? No, we didn't cross into someone's
Do people
house.
live in that actual house?
Yeah, someone lives there.
Yeah,
but
so they must be like, it's those nerds again.
It's those food safety nerds again. They're out to, ooh, there's the house. Where it happened. House where it happened. I'm sure that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
But no, it was a good. It's always a good. It's always a good conference, and I've always described it as a bit of a gathering of heroes and kind of a homecoming, if you will. In fact, I remember taking you to an event we talked about last time. It was like the first time I took you to a conference and to show you how people react at this.
Yes.
Unlike, because we've been to other things that are not food safety related, other conferences.
Right.
And it's just people showing up. They're just an extension. Oh, I'm glad I'm out of the office, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And what can I get away with in terms of calling it a work, quote unquote, vacation? Well, we did go to that one event in Salt Lake City.
The Qualtrics conference. That was pretty
Data
fun.
collection. Surrounded by data collection geeks.
Yep.
And, we saw Elton
I think
John.
that they are officially prefer to be called data nerds.
Data nerds?
Yeah.
All right, well, we had a private concert for Elton John, and there was like a circus theme evening.
Oh,
One
yeah.
of the pre-event nights or whatever kind of a deal.
Right. And then one of the post nights, they did a whole skiing thing that actually turned out to be a disaster for us because we were not ready to go skiing again that season.
It had been a while since we went skiing, but yeah, so IFP this year was in Cleveland, Ohio, which was where it was basically the place of Metropolis for the Superman movies. So literally across the street from my hotel was where a scene was filmed, and there was the Rock and Roll Museum,
right? Rock and Roll Hall of Fame
Museum.
Yep.
That was only a few blocks from my hotel in the conference center, and there was a World War II submarine. Got to see that, but most importantly is got to hang out with my usual people I hang out with. It was different this time though, because not only was so on Monday I was recording some podcasts for a company, and on Tuesday I was recording some podcasts and interviews for a magazine. It's one of those things that I do because it's kind of like I'm embedded within the industry and I can do this kind of interviewing and the journalism aspect of things.
Right.
So to be interviewed and to interview at the same time and to basically draw from my network of folks, it works out really, really well. But what was really kind of notable was, I was sitting at one of those kind of tall tables, with tall stools.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like a standing table with tall stools with Bill Marler. We were talking, and this woman comes by and she goes, Darin, Bill. And we both turn to her and go, what? Like Doc Brown in Back to the Future. We've got to go back in time. She goes, there's a poster over here about you guys and Poisoned. We're like, no, I had no idea. So she takes us over there. We walk all across the hall, and sure enough, there's a poster talking about the Purdue University student did a poster on the impact of the Poisoned documentary, the one that won a Emmy on Netflix last year.
I'm sorry, it won a what?
It won an Emmy. Yes. And it was about the impact and how it made an impact on food safety and communication. And but the student was not there. So we were looking at it, and Bill and I ended like taking a selfie with it. And remind me one of those scenes from some kind of a movie where, someone throws a party and hopes that some celebrity shows up and over the course of hours and hours of waiting, anticipating, they get drunk and pass out. And that's when the celebrity shows up.
Yes.
And what's that?
The movie, 200 Cigarettes.
200 Cigarettes.
Yes.
That's the one. That's the one.
Yes.
And then at the end, you see the picture.
Yes, with Elvis Costello.
Yeah, Elvis Costello is like taking a selfie with her passed out.
Yes.
But someone had texted the student, hey, they're here, they're at your poster. And she must have come running because she finally comes, because Bill and I left the poster, and now we're kind of talking with some other groups who are like, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you in person. And this student comes, this girl, the young woman, she's married, she's a young woman, comes running up. Oh my God, I miss you. I'm my poster. Oh, did you see my poster? Yes, poster. And so it's cool. This is the second time I've seen a university student do a poster about the impact of Poisoned, but the first time I've been able to, meet the actual student that did the research. And we ended up talking a little bit about behind the scenes, but I tell you, there are moments when you realize that being at these conferences sometimes is not about what, you can gain from it, but what other people, their takeaway, their experience, because now they got to see the person for real, in person.
Right.
And they take selfies. I've got a whole collection of people taking, pictures of people taking selfies with me and hey, remember that scene? Or, oh, I saw you on stage a couple years ago. Or, and there was actually flying out of Cleveland, there was a woman sitting next to me, and we're connected on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, I don't know how I didn't get the time to see you. I saw you were interviewing someone. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I'm so glad we're on this flight back from Cleveland. And so, we spent the entire flight from Cleveland to Denver, where the layover was, talking about what she does for work, what she does as a food safety expert advisor, and how she raises chickens at home with her husband. And it was a cool talk, but it just becomes an interesting experience. It's much more so than, the classes or the sessions or the panels or the learning opportunities, which are important. Mm-hmm. But I think the bigger measure of the whole culture that you end up becoming involved in when all these like-minded people are together, it's just always a really cool vibe.
Well, the one thing, and I've gone to a few of these different conferences, so I have a good idea of what they're about and what goes on during the time. I mean, I've had people nerding out, running to you to get their copy of Food Safety Past, Present, and Predictions signed and those kinds of things. But I think one of the more meaningful experiences that I have when I've joined you at these conferences is when people tell the story of how you impacted them in a positive way. I mean, that would kind of suck if you were impacting them in a negative way, but I mean, you tend to, when you get up and speak, you have quite the impact on the people who are watching. And I remember in particular when we were at the conference in New Orleans, and there was a reception, and a young man came up to you, and he had talked about how almost 10 years prior, you had spoken at a food safety conference in Massachusetts out on the Cape. And what you said had impacted him so deeply. And he often goes back to remembering that speech and how much it moved him to help spear him on when things kind of get discouraging in his industry. And, it's a tough time to be a food safety inspector. It's a tough time to be in that role. And so him being able to recollect the reasons why you do that, it was really moving for me to hear him say that even 10 years later, something that you said had that much of an impact. And it's always really cool to see that kind of interaction.
Well, we've been to those conferences where there's always like the motivational speaker, or you have that super inspiring tale being told. Mm-hmm. And I realize that far too often you have the regulatory update and the scientific update, and you have the let's learn about this and LASIP and FSMA, and those are all important. But to have those, those kind of moments when you realize, look, I have a choice in what I can be doing, right? I can go back and rehash the history of now 32 years ago. I can get into deep with policy and definitions and case studies, but there are plenty of people to do that. But what if I kind of blend the two? What if I stick within the idea of an important lesson to learn, but also do it in a way that becomes something that is lasting? It is not just motivational, but perhaps it's validating. Perhaps it helps someone justify why they want to stick in a field or to go into a different field. I hear that quite often. And now I'm hearing it more and more from young students who, in many cases, they were born after the events of 1993.
Right.
And yet they've grown up with this. They've seen this. They've interacted with things. And I mean, I've had people even recently, they saw me on TikTok. They saw me on this YouTube video. They saw me on this podcast or this webinar. They saw me in the documentary. They read about me in an article. And something I said stuck with them. Something I said realized that there's more to this than just, following the procedures and understanding the dates and the facts kind of a thing. So
Right.
I really try to make sure that if I want to say that I was successful for any one thing, it definitely was helping to support the culture of food safety today and make it such that tomorrow it's more so than just you're either a scientist or a lawyer or a quote unquote data nerd. You're someone who really is acting with passion and has a mission and, thinks about the fact that there are people that look at what they do as being worthy of wearing that superhero cape.
Right, right. Well, we recently had kind of a weird experience where somebody completely not even near the food industry, but in a completely different industry, we had seen a show by Tig Notaro, and when we were there after the show, we kind of went up to meet her because she was just kind of hanging out, talking to some people, and she recognized you from Poisoned.
Yeah, she was doing that kind of crowd work. She was working the crowd, and we were front row, by the way. It was a small venue. And she'd asked the question, like, is anyone famous? Has anyone done anything scandalous? Or is anyone who's like been in a documentary? And I had raised my hand, and she didn't call on me.
Not at that moment. Yeah.
But after the fact, she was like, yeah, didn't you raise your hand when I asked if anyone had been in a documentary? And I said, yeah, I did. I was in that documentary Poisoned on Netflix. And she goes, oh my God, I saw that. Oh my God. And I even made my wife watch that.
Well, that was the thing that I thought was so cool, is that she had seen it probably traveling or on the road or whatever it was. But what you said in the documentary had such an impact on her that she went home and told her wife, you have to watch this documentary because of this guy and his story and what he said and what he's done with his career. And it was kind of that whole, wearing the cape kind of, the fact of the matter is that what you do is important, and it's always super satisfying when somebody else recognizes it and comments to you. And it makes me very proud to help be a part of that whole experience as well. That, doing my little part in helping you, supporting you, taking care of our business is kind of my way of being able to also protect every plate.
Well, it was a little bit of a surreal moment because, we go to, in this case, a comedy act, show, whatever, to escape from.
Yeah, it wasn't a conference that had nothing to do with food safety whatsoever.
And she's talking about this, and she had 3 or 4 of her friends on stage, behind the scenes with her, whatever, because we were just down off stage. It was in this conversation, and she goes, and there was this guy who was telling this story and blah 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 blah, and I looked at her, I'm like, that's me, that was me. And she was looking at me, she goes, oh my God, that was you. And then she turns to her friends and she's basically giving them the Reader's Digest version of what was going on. And I remember sitting there thinking, okay, this is a little surreal because here's this actress that I know from Star Trek and from all these different things, and she's recounting what I said on a documentary to her friends. I'm standing right here.
Right.
But it is one of those moments where you realize that, we're all consumers, we all eat, and we all can listen to these messages. And perhaps this was an opportunity not only to put something out there for those in the world of food safety, but it really kind of validates my ultimate purpose for that documentary, was to ignite conversations about food safety, not after someone's already been harmed, but before.
Well, and that was another thing that was really interesting, was after she explained her experience of watching Poisoned and who you were, they actually had super thoughtful questions that they were asking you about food safety. People actually do care that their food is safe and that it's not going to make them sick. And that was really, to me, pretty heartening to recognize that people do actually care that what, any of you that are listening on this podcast or everybody who's involved in this industry that shows up to conferences, that the general public does care about what you're doing to help keep their food safe. And that to me was really, really cool to see as well.
It was a really cool moment.
Because when you're at these conferences, it can kind of feel like a little bit of an echo chamber. I think the part of the reason I brought this whole thing up was just to show that, like, a lot of times, you're sharing ideas and involved with people, but you're all sort of preaching to the same choir because you're all committed to this cause. So recognizing and seeing, oh, what we do, actually people care that we're doing this. And that is outside of conferences like IAFP.
As you can imagine, I go to a lot of these conferences, and even if the location's different or the theme is different or whatever, you do hear a lot of the same people, the same companies from the same messages. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to realize that not everyone's going to take away the same
message.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Well, because everybody's looking at it from a different lens. You have people from industry, you have people from, the different inspectors, the governmental agencies, the private citizens like you who, we have a consulting business, and essentially you are a private citizen. You're not working for a particular corporation or a governmental agency or anything like that. So
yeah, I mean, some people are going there to sell a product or to sell a service or to sell a subscription or to get a job or to earn.
So based on the lens of why you're there, you'll probably hear the same message differently.
Well, yeah. And my goal is always to make sure that if I'm selling anything, it's that this is important and that consumers want to have these heroes, and that there is a true burden of disease that goes far beyond some kind of description of, data, statistics, charts, and some people can become ill and hospitalized from this, that there is truly more than that. But my message does not always have to be framed around doom and gloom. It can be just the idea of being there and being part of this. Even those multiple interviews that I was doing with different companies, someone had asked me a question about, they were watching on Monday. They were part of the production team. And after we had done the fourth and final interview, was asking me, how did I know what I was going to be talking about? Well, I didn't know exactly what I was going to be talking about. But she also went on to say, wow, these were all so different interviews. One of them you're talking about data. One of them you're talking about publishing. One of them you're talking about proactive versus reactive. There was a completely different lens for each of these different interviews. You're talking about food safety. And I think we have to remember that there are very different lenses, different perspectives, different directions, different angles, different dimensions of food safety. And to truly be embedded within the world of food safety, you kind of have to know more than just any one single focus.
Well, yeah, I think that's why even just attending these conferences is important, because it gives you that well-rounded view of what are other people doing? What are other people's thought process? What are they thinking? What is their purpose?
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. Well, this podcast is called Confessions of a Food Safety A-Hole. And I kind of set you off on a little task.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And I did.
You fulfilled the task.
I took my little microphones on a little stick and connected it to my phone and asked some people these questions.
Yep.
And we're going to explore one of those today, I hear.
Yeah, we're going to explore the...
Which one?
The first one.
Oh.
Which is...
if someone is described as a quote-unquote food safety a-hole, what does that mean to you? That one?
Yeah. Basically, when you hear the words food safety a-hole, what does it make you think of?
I was surprised because they weren't all the same kind of answers.
No. So let's listen to a couple of the answers.
That doesn't really sound very good when you say it like that, a food safety a-hole.
So you think it's a bad thing?
Well, in general, I think the term a-hole is just a slightly shorter way to say something not very nice.
To me, I have a decade of in-store experience, and I guess a food safety a-hole to me would be somebody that's, doesn't want to be an asset in teaching a store, but somebody who wants to be an ass, I guess. Somebody coming in and not trying to teach or train or improve a store. Somebody that just comes in and wants to look down on the store.
That means to me, and I'm probably different because I'm on the consulting side, right? That is someone who's not following the right rules. They're not washing their hands properly. They don't care if they make people sick. That's who I think a food safety a-hole is.
Somebody doing something either in a restaurant or a facility that they're definitely not supposed to be doing.
So that was really interesting, right? Because, if you heard episode 1, we talked about what our definition of a food safety a-hole is. And these people had really different answers just off of gut instinct. They haven't listened to the podcast. We hadn't actually launched it yet.
I asked these before we launched the episode 1.
So that was really interesting. What was your take when you were asking them?
Well, I didn't want to give them too much information to really kind of set too much of a direction, if you will. And what I take away from these people's response is kind of like the cart and the horse kind of situation. Because someone's being an a-hole, it has a negative effect on food safety. They're stubborn in what they do. They don't care. And I've said this before. You know that my favorite 2 things to go to when someone is presenting a situation where there's a failure in food safety is you either don't know or you don't care.
Right.
And turn that into the idea of, therefore, you must be an a-hole.
Right.
So I didn't tell them they're wrong.
No, of course not.
But I could totally see that the idea of if there's something wrong with food safety, then you are in the wrong, and that associating the idea of being an a-hole would be in the quote unquote in the wrong bucket of people.
Right.
But we did have some other responses.
Yes, we did have a couple of responses, and
let's roll that beautiful tape.
Maybe really, really by the book.
Okay.
My first thought is they told a reality about food safety that somebody didn't like to hear, and so their immediate response was, well, that person's just an a-hole.
So before you say anything, that first response seemed pretty close to what we'd been talking about. Whereas the second response was so spot on, it makes me think that you'd already had this conversation with him before.
No, I actually hadn't, but
no.
This person knows me very well, and I think they just intuitively knew where I was going with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do find interesting, based on those 2 responses, when you're watching a TV show or a movie and you have the person who is quote unquote by the book or who is going to tell you the honest truth,
right?
They're often portrayed as not cool and hip.
Right.
It completely makes sense that they would be, of your gang of friends from college or from work, who's the food safety a-hole? That character.
Right.
That character. It impacts how they're dressed, how they're perceived, and how they kind of shape that world of, you're not cool if you do the right thing in those cases.
Right.
Well, in fact, remember months ago, there was some series with Vince Vaughn. What was it? The monkey?
Oh, Bad Monkey.
Bad Monkey. And talk about perception of things. He was a cop in Florida who got in trouble, and his punishment was to be the food inspector.
That's right. Oh my God.
That's not cool, Hollywood. That's like when I was teaching, your punishment is to read a book.
Right.
Okay, that's not good. Reading shouldn't be a punishment. Neither should being a food inspector or anyone who works in food regulatory compliance.
Right. Oh God, I totally forgot about that. That's absolutely right.
I mean, it was a minimal part of the whole movie, but that was a reality when I'm sure others who work in food safety are watching that go, are you serious? That's the punishment?
Yeah. All right. So let's make a little transition into story time.
Story time.
Yeah. I would like to hear a quote unquote confession from you of a time when you were a food safety a-hole. Maybe one of your earliest memories of this experience, because you made a commitment to yourself and to your son that you would speak up. And by doing this, you took a risk. Tell me about one of the first times that you remember doing that.
Sure. I remember probably my first earliest moment of being that food safety a-hole. It was only months after everything had happened, and I was 24. And to put things in perspective, when I was 24 at that time, I had already completed my Navy service. I'd already been a nuclear engineer on a submarine. But sometimes I forget about how young 24 really is. My youngest son today is 29. And just yesterday I was on the phone with him, giving him some advice in terms of how to change his oil for his car. He's on a road trip.
On the importance of changing the oil, no less.
Yeah, not just how to, but why it's important to check your oil. And he's 5 years older than I was at this moment back in 1993. But there was this moment in 1993. I and some of the other parents who had lost children had an opportunity to sit down with the then Secretary of Agriculture, the Honorable Mike Espy. Now, to put things into perspective, I learned years later when I was writing my book, Food Safety Past, Present, and Predictions, in interviewing a bunch of the people involved from the USDA and even Mike Espy himself, that the USDA actually had their fears. They had their concerns about coming out to the Seattle area. And as one person put it, they were imagining that they were going to be dealing with people with like torches and pitchforks. and do they need to consult with security in order to meet with people? But they did meet with us, and it turned out to be very beneficial for many different reasons. And we'll get into that another time. But in this moment, we are at a banquet facility at some hotel in downtown Seattle. And there's really just one table of probably 10, 12 of us with the Secretary of Agriculture and a couple of his aides. And we had reserved the space for a couple hours. And at some point, they literally wheeled a cart in. And there was the sandwich makings. There was the bread and the lunch meat selections and the cheeses and the mayo and the mustard and the lettuce, tomato, all that kind of stuff. And let's say we started at 9 and we're going to go till about 1. And they wheeled it in at 9:30.
Oh my gosh. Seriously?
Yeah.
Lunch. And they wheeled it in at 9:30.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And it had been there for now at least 2 hours. And I'm kind of looking at this going, that can't be good, because is there ice? There was no ice. There was nothing there. And you know that look. You've seen that look in my eyes before, that kind of neck turning, that kind of I'm not really paying attention, but I'm paying attention, but I'm thinking about what is going on over here. And I go, once I saw the hotel attendant or whatever, catering, I guess, come back in the room, I kind of went over there and said, hey, this has not been on ice or refrigerated. It's been here for a long time. I don't think, this is not good for us to eat. We're talking about food safety. And this person goes, well, I work in the catering department and I can tell you it's fine. I'm like, no, it's not. You need to go get a supervisor. And the supervisor eventually comes in. This woman comes in, with a name tag and her radio and keys jingling. And she looks at the situation. He goes, well, I'm the director of catering and I'm telling you it's just fine. And that was the moment when the Secretary of Agriculture stood up from the table, went over and said, I am the Secretary of the United States Department of Agriculture, and I'm telling you, we are not going to eat that food because it has been sitting out for too long without any kind of refrigeration.
Yeah.
You are going to replace this with new food. And the director of catering goes, yes, we will take care of that right away, sir. But
Jeez.
I'm like, maybe these were baby steps in me being the food safety a-hole, but there's the flip side of it. If I don't say something, then not only am I putting myself at jeopardy, but I'm also being the a-hole in terms of I know this is wrong, and I let someone go along with doing this,
Right.
without saying, "Hey, this is wrong."
Right. Right. That we're kind of trained not to speak up, to be polite in the face of certain errors. And at 24, you're still a kid enough that speaking up is a challenge. So that was kind of a big deal. And I applaud him for standing up and basically supporting you, because they were definitely treating you like a food safety a-hole.
Yeah. And, just another, well, I often thought about this whole, the customer's always right.
Right.
Or, why shouldn't the customer say something?
This was the 90s, when the customer is always right was what everybody took from the entire phrase, which is actually not the proper phrase. And it drives me crazy that people still use it, even knowing that the full phrase is the customer is always right in matter of taste. This is not a matter of taste. This is you are feeding us food that has been sitting out for hours, not on ice, unrefrigerated, just sweating and whatever it was doing. That's disgusting and potentially harmful to you.
Well, I also think about that phrase, buyer beware.
Mm-hmm.
So buyer beware to me says you should know enough to be able to ask the right questions or to look for the right signs. Well, when it comes to food safety, I can't look at it and tell you the temperature, but I can look at my watch and tell you it's been out of refrigeration or off of ice for more than 2 hours.
Right.
And why would I want to eat that mayo and the cheese and the meats, right? And the customer's always right. Sure, maybe it matters of taste, and I can't taste a problem with food safety, but I know what the taste of utter failure tastes like.
Sure.
And if I don't say anything in that moment, then I'm probably in the eyes of more so than the people in that room, I'm more so of a food safety a-hole than that one person who works as the director or whatever of catering for that hotel.
Right. But no, what I mean is back in the 90s, when everybody was taking the customer's always right. And so people in the service industry were often backing off when a customer would bring up an issue. And the fact that they were not backing off, and not only was the one person in catering not backing off, but even got his manager, who was also not backing off, even in an age of, well, we have to respect that the customer is always right. That is actually kind of surprising to me to hear that. I mean, they wouldn't even take what you were saying under consideration. They were just asserting their dominance of knowledge. Read the room. Do you not know what this conference is even about? This whole meeting is about something very related, like directly related. Unrefrigerated meat. Come on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the fact that they were calling you out and, oh, sir, we know what we're talking about. And that you actually had to have the full power of the Secretary of Agriculture back you up is like insanity.
It always makes me laugh today when you're watching a show like NCIS and, the agents burst into a crime scene and there's other people there and they yell, NCIS. I'm always thinking, why didn't they just say federal agent? Because I'm sure most people don't know what NCIS is. Now, maybe because of NCIS, just like CSI.
Right.
We know those acronyms. But before there were the TV shows, right? People would be like, if I said stop right there. XYZLQ. Someone's going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? Who are you? You know? But I did think it's kind of funny that he didn't say the USDA secretary. He said, I'm the secretary of the Department of Agriculture.
Right.
You know, and I was waiting for him to have to explain more, but I guess this person knew enough there. I've often thought about that event because there was almost not just the eye-opener moment that took place there, but there was a bit of humor in it in terms of all the places, of all the conversations, of all the people to be in that room.
Right.
Those were the worst possible scenario conditions
For them to try and assert their dominance.
Right. I'm sure that this now probably former or retired director of catering for this hotel was probably telling the story of, let me tell you of the perfect storm back in 1993 when you think that what could be worse than being told that your food's been out too long. It was in this room with this conversation and these particular people.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But I don't know. Maybe they thought twice about the next time they put food and left it out there for too long.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we run out of time here, I wanted to make sure that people are aware that I've got a really cool serialized story coming out in September in New Food Magazine out of London.
That's really good.
And this is one I know that you've heard me talk about this so much. It is a serialized, so there's like a 4-part story.
Right.
It's told in 4 segments. I think there's actually going to be a 5th. There's going to be like a author's note kind of epilogue-ish at the end. But there's going to be like a new installment every week on newfoodmagazine.com. And it kind of balances between or bridges between my service on a submarine and my work in food safety, and it draws upon some parallels and some lessons learned that I didn't even realize were connected to food safety or would be so foundational in my thinking about leadership until many years later. And I just met up at IFP in Cleveland with the leadership there, and we're really excited about this story coming out. And you and I, we've put together some resources on a webpage that'll be kind of going along with this article.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've been putting on our webpage?
Well, we have a lot of supporting materials. There's a whole glossary. There'll be photo galleries, different resources that readers, if they want to learn more information.
Even discussion questions, like if you're treating it like a book talk.
If you're going to do it as like a book club or something, we have those. And that'll be available on pepnexus.com/silent.
Excellent.
And I'll put the URL up on the description of this particular episode so that if somebody wants to go look at some of the other stuff, it will give you links back once the article is published, but it will also give you some links back to the addendum information that we'll be providing.
This is so awesome. And I'm looking forward to this. It'll be really cool to see this coming out in September. And, I really haven't talked too much about my Navy experience, my submarine experience in terms of the world of food safety, but it seems like it's the right time. And you know what else seems like the right time?
What seems like the right time?
It seems like it's the right time for our outro.
Oh, it's time for the outro. Episode's done.
Time for the outro.
All right. Well, with that, thank you very much for joining us on Confessions of a Food Safety A-Hole. And please like and subscribe, follow us, and listen for the next episode.
When you take the truth, you take the flack, and you call it out, and sometimes they push back. You got to stand your ground and speak about the facts of food safety.
Okay. So now you're just stealing from the facts of life.
Yeah, it kind of does sound like that. Thank you very much.